So, really kind of looking at traditional, and we'll go into a little more cloud here in a second. We covered a lot of these on the previous slide in terms of being able to be able to transfer risk. This brings it up to kind of a more enterprise level rather than more of that tactical, technical level I spoke about. So, some traditional vulnerabilities that we're seeing, physical access to data centers. We talked about that in the previous slide in terms of you're transferring a lot of that risk. However, the risk here, when we look at the cloud, is that even though you're still standing these things up and you're still standing up some portion of the infrastructure, even though it's cloud infrastructure, having access, right, physical access, so developers being able to log into the web server, having IT staff being able to log into and manage the infrastructure, being able to manage those assets, right? Because at the end of the day, they are assets. To be able to control that access in a much more mature way, and a lot of folks talk about multi-factor authentication. That's a good way to reduce the risk of somebody having physical access to one of those cloud deployment solutions or services that you're using to make sure that things aren't tampered with, destroyed, misconfigured, etc. Going down, infrastructure being patched on a timely basis. We see this constantly, right? Both in traditional as well as in cloud deployments, and that it's almost as if the organization has determined, well, it's the cloud, it's the cloud service provider's responsibility to manage that. As I talked about almost ad nauseum in the last slide, there's still a lot of risk that an organization needs to digest, right? It needs to accept or manage or mitigate. And this is a big one. We see this constantly with infrastructure and specifically malware, and more specifically ransomware within cloud environments. And you go, well, how is that possible? The CSP is delivering a service. You're putting your stamp on that, right? You're putting your secret sauce on that service, right? Which makes your organization. But you need to make sure that you're still managing that, from a patching perspective, from an update perspective, and addressing those potential vulnerabilities. We talked about a little bit of the rogue IT or the shadow IT with the next row in terms of, not knowing what's in the environment. We see this again a lot, where the organizations, either have a hybrid or a cloud native, and they don't know every single thing that's in their environment. This could be within the cloud. This could be those devices that IT uses to access the cloud. It is still extremely important for organizations to understand what their IT assets are and what assets are able to access either systems or data. We then look at really the capacity and availability. We touched on it a little bit before, but this is key when we talk about the benefits of the cloud, is making sure that systems are available. And when we start looking at availability and capacity, this really starts to get in again and cross over the line between business continuity and disaster recovery and change and configuration management. And so really understanding, hey, what is our need? How often is it available as it relates to RTOs and RPOs as they're set within SLAs for our customers? Being able to understand what that means, right, results in understanding what is our potential loss. How do we manage that to make sure that we are at an acceptable risk level? And then the last one is really, again, I keep touching on, the disaster recovery, business continuity. The beautiful part of the cloud is that these can become automated. However, making sure that they're done correctly helps manage that risk. And again, at Coalfire, in doing these evaluations frequently, we're seeing a lot of these organizations say, yeah, I've got a backup. Yeah, I've got this set up. But then when sadness happens and they're required to go back and restore, they're unable to do it efficiently because they haven't done it accurately or maturely. So though you see different types of risk, these traditional risks still present themselves when we're looking at the cloud.